roll-in, okay?
What's that? What's the roll-in?
Just after the roll-in, okay?
Well,
Please, Rusty.
He just say a quick hi. Hi, this is Sal Gubernelli.
Okay,
I
Sal.
deeply apologize from the bottom of my heart.
Sal, I don't want you to apologize from the bottom of your heart because you shouldn't have to say you're sorry. You had some wonderful reason for doing whatever you did.
Unfortunately, I didn't represent myself properly on how I wanted to explain myself.
Okay.
It was simply a joke. I sincerely apologize over the fact that people were offended.
Oh, well, thank you.
I said a few comments that offended a few people.
Okay, well, can you keep staying tuned, and I'm going to have a whole show on it, okay? Because I have a lot of provocative material right now.
White women generally
Please call back.
have
Thanks.
sex.
Thanks. Okay, I was a little concerned about that. Okay, now on to the important stuff. And Sal and Rusty, do stay posted for this. Last week we had Russell Targ and J.J. Hertog, and Russell Targ did the remote viewing program at Stanford, and for 23 years the government gave somewhere between $2 and $4 million to perfect the remote viewing. And so I'm going to do a roll-in of Russell Targ. He gave me permission to do it, and in future shows I hope that we're going to be able to have Russell call in. However, and Sal and Rusty, you have the kind of sharpness to stay on top of this, there's another side to remote viewing and some people that are not pleased with it. So after that, I'm going to go over to the internet and we'll hear that. So without further ado, let's have Russell Targ.
And the beautiful girl, she said, and the little girl was begging her to go and find her mother. Well, my friend was in tears practically on the phone, a very emotional state at this point when she called me. And then we talked about it, and she prayed. We prayed for this little girl. And then when I got home, this email was waiting for me when I got home.
Now, Hannah, what's her last name and where does she live?
Hannah Billups.
Hannah what?
Hannah Billups, B-I-L-L-U-P-S.
And she lives where?
In Ono, West Virginia, on the top of a mountain, very secluded area. There's only one road up to this mountain where she lives. She is a very hillbilly. She calls herself a hillbilly, so I can say it too. Country girl who's never been anywhere, is very naive, knows nothing about the world, and in fact, I have been used to send her, by the Lord, to send her many, many audio and videotapes about the New World Order. I've totally blown her mind with information I've been able to get to her over the past month through video and audio tapes and through emails and through she has her own website and internet contact. So in spite of her being back in the woods of the mountains of West Virginia, she has had access to learn about the New World Order.
Now she doesn't. Now she also has a husband and children, yes, and he's well respected in the community. So this isn't a story that is.
Over 400 employees and has contract work for the railroad.
Okay. So anybody, our listeners, want to track this down to verify her existence, and this isn't a hoax, can do that, correct?
Douglas Billups is his name.
Okay, Douglas Billups. What's the name of the town in West Virginia?
Right.
What's the name of the town?
Oh, no. Her mailing address that I have is probably a very small community. O-N-O, West Virginia.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, and then I got this email when I got home. Hi, Sylvia, what a strange evening here on top of this mountain. I think I made a mistake by telling the authorities about what I've seen the past 2 weeks. I'm trying to help that little girl. They asked me how I knew so much about this area since I have never been there in that place. I told them about my gift from the Lord, and I want to help her. They were real nice to me and told Mark and me they would be back here sometime this week. They took my journal of all my visions collected from 2 years' worth, called me a star child, and that I was misdirecting my targets and needed to be retrained to help them. They said they wanted to put me in one of their military programs called Stargate that helps the government solve many issues, and they call people like me star children. I think I made a big mistake. I need prayer tonight. I keep seeing that little girl's face pleading for help. It's tearing me up.
Okay, now when did you receive this email?
This was the following evening, which would have been on Monday of last week after our phone conversation earlier that day.
Okay, and as I was talking, we're going to break here in 2 minutes, and then we got a whole half hour to get into this story. But like we were discussing, like I wanted to bring up, when I heard about the Stargate program, there were articles written that it hadn't existed, that this was a fiction. Then basically in 2004 it was proven, and also journalist Jack Anderson had been researching this story for a number of years, trying to get to the bottom of it. So we do have a Stargate remote viewing program that the CIA does admit exists. What have you found out about it in your research?
Well, I taped our last conversation. She called me in a total panic. That's more into the story, but for the phone conversation, which I have taped with her, she was reading from me. I want to get you a copy of this. Reading from me from their manual, and they was actually calling these people remote viewers, even called them RVs, or remote viewers, or ARV, associate remote viewers, and all the documents she was reading off on me on the telephone, which, as I'm saying, I have this documented on an audio tape. They were playing a very hypnotic type of CD there. They were trying to control her mind. This man was actually reading her mind.
Okay, so we have her calling saying that, and this isn't uncommon either, because if you see, police authorities will use people with the psychic abilities to try to get to the bottom of cases. As sometimes a last resort, as sometimes a way to maybe even open up their minds to things they miss. But it is a fact that people are used in law enforcement capabilities to do this. Now, here we go. Here's the interesting part of the story. She has these visions that she knows of a girl that is being kidnapped or something, correct?
Right.
Okay, so she contacts the authorities last week. Give us a time frame here.
She contacted them on Monday. After our conversation, Monday evening, she contacted them, and they were at her home the same day, Monday evening, which would have been the 7th.
That's a week ago, yeah.
Right.
We're gonna pick up right there after this 3-minute break, talking to Sylvia West from
Texas 7861.
Remember, folks, dishonest retail takes remote viewers, people with paranormal abilities, and uses that for testing and other reasons. More importantly, the story we're talking about is how a friend of Sylvia's just a week ago notified the FBI regarding an incident that was occurring that she basically saw in a vision, and basically contacted the FBI and has been not kidnapped, but taken away, and no one knows where this woman is right now. Anyway, let's get back to the story, Sylvia. Go ahead.
Okay, immediately after I got that email from her, I called her on the phone, and we had a very long conversation, and I'm so glad that I had the foresight to get my little tape recorder and turn the speakerphone on and to tape this. She began to tell me how the very next day, okay, this was, okay. She was going to tell me how that, I'm losing track of my story. Let me go back and retract.
That's okay. Well, let's do this.
I got this letter on it. Okay.
Monday she...
In her house. Okay, the next day, she had a visit by 2 more agents when they knew that her son would be out in the field working and her husband would not be there.
Right.
She had a visit by 2 more agents. And very strange agents. They walked in her door.
Now, wait a second. Let's go back so we don't confuse people here. I'm a little confused myself. Monday, she contacts...
Right, the FBI.
The FBI because she says that she has information about a crime being committed, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But to her surprise, they immediately come out, right?
Right. They were out the same day on a Monday.
Okay. And this was because of visions that she had that evening.
And then she emailed me in a panic that she had made a mistake. And they were making plans for her to escape, to get away to a place of safety, a place of hiding.
Okay.
Well, on Tuesday, 2 more agents came to her home the following day when they knew her husband would be at work and her son would be out in the field working. They didn't even knock. They just walked in the door. And this is a conversation that I have on tape when she was telling me all of this stuff. And they began to play a tape from on his laptop computer, and it was messing with her mind to the point where that she later could not even remember my name to try to call me. And then they left a Stargate manual, training manual with her, 52 pages, and 6 CDs, training CDs with her when they left that day. When he shook her hand, he says, "My dear, how can we convince you to help us. And she read me portions from this manual, which I have on the audio tape of that conversation. And this was on a Tuesday.
Okay.
And on our conversation that night, she and her husband were in a panic. They were making plans to take her to another piece of property that they have and hide her so that they could not get her. And
now, he is a businessman in town, correct? And
yes, he owns I'm not sure the name of the place, but I do have an email that he had sent to another person, and his wife sent me, where he was saying he had over 400 employees. He does contract work for the railroad. He was recently injured in a very bad accident where he was burnt, but apparently he's survived and is okay now, and he's gotten out of the hospital. And
can you just tell our listeners who your friend is now that's missing?
Her name is Hannah Billups.
Okay, and that we're talking about her husband, and she has 5 children, right?
Well, they're all grown children. She
Okay.
only has one 18-year-old son at home now. And he was the one, he had been given specific instructions by the father not to leave her side on Wednesday.
Okay,
and he was coming home from work.
Here we are back again, and I wanted to cut it off a little bit because it drags on. But according to this radio show, and I still have to investigate it, and I encourage people out there in TV land to do their own research, this lady was very gifted, so she could see things that most people can't see. Some people train for it. When I was down at the Monroe Institute, I ran into a guy, I think his name was Joe McMonagle, and he was one of the country's best remote viewers. And it was very interesting, my encounter with him, because at that time I had left the country to Cyprus, and he was such a good American. I thought, you know, if he feels so good about the Constitution and what we're doing, you know, I should stick it out here too. I had a caller, but he disappeared. Anyway, I want to race on to the show that we did a few weeks ago, because as Rusty and Sal allowed me to do, I should not only say that I felt like a martyr because of witnessing certain things or bringing an African-American esoteric astrologist together with a rabbi to try to uncover what is the meaning of covenants and rights. Like everyone goes, oh, it's our right to do this and it's our right to do that. Well, who gives the rights? Who secures the rights? And I think this was why the wise Jewish people of the past made a covenant with the best power they could to say, if we do this, then we get this. And then the whole unfolding of how that covenant is upheld or not upheld. Today we have entire countries that are defaulting. And then the reason I brought up this remote viewing situation is why is it that we see what we see and we don't see what we don't see? And how can we work together to see more? Because obviously the more knowledge we have, the more effective we're going to be. So let me go on again with the past show, and here goes.
Sounds I like to lick pussy up.
Oh, right.
Okay, let's just get Webster, okay, Molly?
Okay. I know. It's never been this intense. But so again, I wanted to apologize to the people who I brought on the show to try to pull this off, to see if we can understand what is the Israeli lobby, why does Amy Goodman not have loose change on, what are the implications. If we had gone on farther on that the radio show, it claims that even George Bush, our present president, was brought into this mind control program.
Anomalies in the official version of 9/11. Am I not right?
Well, yes. I was in Vermont last week at the University of Vermont in Burlington, and there was also a meeting of the Vermont Green Party, which is a very good and very active Green Party in that state. And they passed, with their statewide executive committee, a call for the impeachment of Bush-Cheney. And they are not the first in this, but they are the first in this decisive feature. They say that the crimes of Bush-Cheney connected to 9/11, making it happen, letting it happen, covering it up, and many other things, should be the first item on the bill of impeachment. And after that, of course, there's plenty to say about Iraq and illegal wiretapping and dictatorial measures on the home front and much, much more. And I think this is an absolutely important strategic turning point, because I am convinced that without putting 9/11 crimes at the top of the list, there will be no impeachment. The impeachment will fail. And the reason for this is that on all those other issues, the Republicans and the Bushmen are ready to fight back. But on 9/11, they have virtually no defense. They are very vulnerable. This is their exposed flank. So if you include 9/11 in the impeachment agitation, you have a chance of winning. If you are too frightened to put it in, I'm afraid you lose. And Bush will expand the war. He will have a nuclear attack on Iran within perhaps even weeks, but months at the most. And then behind that, we've got this question of war with Russia, war with China, which is being actively discussed by a group of strangeloves at Foreign Affairs magazine, that very sinister association called the Council on Foreign Relations, in that brownstone in Midtown there in Manhattan.
Now, Webster, do you believe that we are a country that's spiritually bankrupt?
Well, I think it's clear that there is a tremendous moral and intellectual crisis, that the institutions are discredited, that they have been guilty of lying and deception and cowardice, and
but
in that way, it's something like the time before the French Revolution, when the institutions were totally hated and discredited. So I would say yes.
But Webster, I just read a letter from my mother, and she told me that the Greek meaning of the word martyr is to witness. Now, how many people want to be martyrs? So it means, like, witnessing means I didn't see it, I didn't hear it, I don't know. And I know that you've claimed that a lot of the gatekeepers, mostly your complaints have been on the left, but obviously anybody who has this knowledge and has seen clearly and has chosen not to relay it would be like those who are choosing not to witness. And yet, you can hardly blame people for not wanting to be martyrs. I feel like a martyr on this show because I'm trying to bring the African roots together with Judaism to try to do what you're saying. We need to turn around and not be distracted by shadows on the cave wall. So what my question finally to you, Webster, is if we get rid of Bush and Cheney, so what? Because if we're spiritually bankrupt, we don't have leaders who at least the offices we can respect and honor and trust and support. Isn't that a crisis?
I think you have to be very sober and very realistic about the choices that are available to you. I have always argued the need for a new cultural and intellectual renaissance. But the issue right now is, will you get World War III a certain number of months down the road, or will you not? The wider war with Iran would already be the beginning of a world war, and it would probably bring down most of the world economy and most of the world financial structures. And in the course of the war with Iran, it is very likely that Russia and China would be thoroughly antagonized and brought to the brink of war themselves. So I think it's important to be concerned about those issues, but right now, we must fight for our lives. I do not call on anybody to be a martyr. I call them rather to fight and to victory, because Bush is vulnerable. He hasn't got a leg to stand on. If we could get the left gatekeepers to address the 9/11 issue, Bush would begin to collapse. It's the only way to collapse him.
Is that
and then perhaps we could get the leisure and the time to begin to think about some of the spiritual questions that you said. But people have a right to survive no matter what spiritual crisis they're going through.
Well, they have a right to survive, but I think, you know, a lot of people now with the sobering information that you gave, if they're really paying attention, they could become quite terrified. You know,
The point is to become terrified enough to become active. There's a good old slogan from the Cold War that we might remember. Your choice is either be active or be radioactive.
Well,
this nightmare world, unfortunately, is back.
Okay, I'm going
Thanks to Bush, Cheney, and neocon fascist madmen.
Okay, I want my partner here, DjenneBa, to address that. DjenneBa, what do you mean? Let's be active or be radioactive? What's your gut comment to Webster? Stay on, Webster, please.
My gut level comment is that we must become active, because this whole thing of silence, people have to stand up. The cycle that we're in is a cycle of upheaval. Ever since we came into the year 2000, the new millennium, a new century, between now and 2012, there's going to be mass upheaval because the things are at an apex of change. It's inevitable. And the 60s was nothing. Yes, we got to get up. We got to stand up.
But I think what the concern is, though, Webster, is people feel if they stand up, they're not going to be supported, or they might lose their jobs, or they might lose their grants. Rabbi Bobroff was talking about the Bible going on in history. Rabbi, can you just make a comment that people would feel their God would be there?
My undertaking is to free the Bible and change it from a source which some people have used anti-love, not for love, but against love, to use it to repress others. And there was an article in this paper.
But just a second, quick, we've got Webster Tarpley on, and he's saying first we have to make sure we don't get blown up, and then we can have the leisure for the spiritual questions. But Webster, what I'm trying
people have to be motivated.
But Webster, what I'm trying to say is, unless we have huge spiritual power,
right,
or where else is the power going to come from, Webster? Are you saying Hillary Clinton or the Democrats?
I don't think this is a conceivable source of any power right now. We need a Democratic Party that is vehemently opposed to Bush's wars, opposed to the criminal adventure in Iraq, and above all, opposed to the wider war with Iran, which is now hanging over our heads. It is a matter of weeks or months.
Yes, Webster.
Intelligence circles are filled with nothing but rumors of imminent war with Iran. And this is different. This is no cakewalk. Iran, if attacked, will defend itself in ways that will be terrifying. I don't want to see what Iran will do if they are attacked. It will not be like Iraq or Grenada or Afghanistan or anything like that. It may reach into people's immediate lives and homes. It is not worth finding out about. There is no reason for war with Iran.
But Webster, I understand all that, and many of my viewers do, and some of the viewers are upset because there's a black woman and a Jewish rabbi here, and we've had funny calls. But what I'm saying is, you are bringing up something absolutely critically important. We've had 300,000 people here in New York protesting that they don't want the war, and yet no recognized party seems to step forward and put that on the platform. So what do the rest of us do?
Again, the question is the thin line of left gatekeepers.
The thin line.
Noam Chomsky's, Amy Goodman's, Michael Moore's,
Greg Palast,
The Nation magazine, Air America. If this group took 9/11 truth and addressed it seriously, we would have 3 to 5 million activists for 9/11 truth. At that point, the left wing of the Democratic Party would become a 9/11 truth squad, and we could then begin to erode and attrit Bush's base, prepare his impeachment, and deprive him of the power of unleashing a terrifying wider war.
But Webster, I'm going to tell you, isn't that just a limited hangout? You said yourself you didn't think George Bush knew what happened.
No, he doesn't know what's happening. But
so what?
He surrendered the United States government to an illegal coup, and he has been the eager puppet of that coup ever since. So he is impeachable 6 ways to Sunday, as is Cheney, who probably knew somewhat more, although not necessarily everything.
But look at Webster. In the good old days, a king would come to be a king because he rode in front of the army. You know, he'd led his army to battle, and he earned that position. I think a lot of people know that today this isn't quite the case, just because of fat bank accounts and connections. We don't have that.
Just so we know, we only have 1 more minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, Webster, you're...
I urge people to take seriously the question of breaking through the line of left liberal gatekeepers. We have right gatekeepers, too. very useful website is called antiwar.com. They are saying that we're on the brink of war with Iran, and yet they do not address 9/11 truth. So I say to people, if you are scared seriously, and by now you should be, 9/11 truth is the answer. And if you don't go to 9/11 truth, I'm sorry, the war is upon us.
Okay, thank you, Webster.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, here I am back again, and I just want to say that it looked like I was sort of blowing off Webster, you know, because after all that heavy information, I was trying to end on an up note, because I know that the up notes are there, but they depend on us pulling together, sort of shedding our image, you know, not being so worried about what other people are thinking about us, and seeing if we can be courageous. Maybe all of us aren't the kings of the past that rode in front of their armies, you know, into battle, but in our own way, each of us has innumerable little moral decisions. And I'm still, oh, let's see what we have here. Number one. Hi, caller. Are you with me, caller? Hello? Shoot, I lost it. Anyway, what I'm hoping is that together we can start to understand why we do what we do and why we don't do what we don't do. There's always a beautiful reason for any action. We shouldn't be saying that we're sorry, that we did something wrong to apologize. I didn't want callers who had made it difficult for some of my guests to say they were sorry. I wanted to find out what's the energy behind it, so we can draw in that energy that we obviously need, since we're up against such big forces, and we're also mesmerized by how powerful those forces are, and we don't understand the power that we have within ourselves. I had one caller before named Bruce, and he is going to send me an email so I can relay to you what he said about remote viewing, and I'll try to get it a little bit tighter, what I picked up on that radio station that comes over the internet, RBN Live Radio Republic Broadcast Network, which is where Webster Tarpley has a show every Saturday, I think from 4 until 6, on all of the 9/11 and the sort of the state of the world economy. I'm going to see if I can get a hold of the producer, and because they tend to be kind of those redneck types. Please excuse me for any of you who are listening in from that group. I'm a redneck type myself, I think, actually. And I'd like to kind of clone it with that huge, fast-paced New York Jewish intellectual precision. And I think it's always been my dream to bring the right and the left together. And for right now, the big question, I guess, is why is Amy Goodman saying she's never heard of loose change? And she probably has a beautiful reason. So if we can find that reason, you know, we'll work together better.